Imagine for a moment that the reality you perceive is not a fixed construct, but a responsive simulation that feeds on your emotional output. Imagine that the feelings of despair, isolation, and anxiety are not merely chemical imbalances in the brain, but are, in fact, energy signatures being harvested by invisible entities that operate just beyond the spectrum of visible light. This is not a concept from a modern science fiction novel or a dystopian theory about the future of artificial intelligence. This is the precise diagnosis of the human condition found in one of the most controversial and suppressed documents of antiquity, the Pistis Sophia. For centuries, this text remained hidden, buried under the sands of Egypt and the dogma of orthodox institutions, because it contained a dangerous truth. It describes a prison system designed to keep consciousness trapped in a cycle of recycling, and more importantly, it provides the escape codes. Today, on Omniscient, we are opening the file on the seventh repentance of Sophia. We are not approaching this as a religious sermon, but as a forensic analysis of a psychological and spiritual breakout. If you have ever felt that the world is designed to drain you, that you are fighting an invisible war against forces that want you to fail, then you are ready to understand the mechanism of the seventh lament. This is the turning point. This is where the prisoner stops begging for mercy and starts hacking the lock. To fully grasp the magnitude of the seventh lament, we must first reconstruct the crime scene. The text, preserved in the Askew Codex, places the entity Sophia in a region known as the Chaos. This is not a metaphorical place of confusion. It is described as a dense, low-frequency environment where the laws of the pleroma, or the fullness, do not apply. Sophia did not end up there by accident. She was lured. The text identifies the perpetrator as Authades, often translated as the arrogant one or the self-willed. This entity, along with his legions of Archons, projected a false signal, a counterfeit light, into the lower regions. Sophia, driven by her innate desire to expand and connect with the light, mistook this projection for the real thing. She descended, and the moment she entered their territory, the trap snapped shut. For 6 agonizing stages, or 6 laments, she was subjected to a systematic extraction of her light power. The Archons, described with grotesque features like the face of a lion, are not just monsters. They are symbols of consuming appetites. They are the cosmic equivalent of parasites that attach themselves to a host to drain its vitality. During the first 6 phases, Sophia reacted exactly as the system expected. She panicked, she fought back with anger, she felt victimized, and she despaired. All these reactions are high-energy emissions. She was feeding her jailers with her own fear. However, the number 7 holds a specific resonance in the ancient code of Gnosticism. It represents the completion of a cycle and the threshold of transformation. In music, the 7th note creates the tension that demands resolution at the octave. In the alchemical process of the soul, the 7th stage is the moment of absolute saturation. It is the moment when the subject realizes that the old methods of survival are obsolete. Sophia realized that fighting the darkness on its own terms was futile, because the darkness thrives on conflict. As long as she focused on the lion-faced power, she was validating its existence and giving it authority over her reality. The 7th lament marks a radical shift in strategy. It is a psychological pivot. Instead of looking down into the abyss and screaming at the monsters, Sophia forcibly redirects her attention upward toward the light of lights. This sounds simple, but in the context of extreme trauma and spiritual siege, it is an act of supreme will. It is the decision to disconnect from the immediate sensory input of pain and reconnect with a memory of origin. It is the override of the survival instinct, which screams, "Look at the danger," in favor of the spiritual instinct, which whispers, "Look at the source." Jesus, acting as the narrator and decoder of this event for his disciples, specifies that this shift occurred when Sophia completely ceased her reliance on her own depleted power and threw her entire being into trust for the light. The text uses a very specific phrasing here. She did not just ask for help. She claimed her lineage. The 7th lament is a legal brief submitted to the cosmic court. Sophia argues that she belongs to the upper realms by nature and that her detention in the chaos is unlawful. She exposes the Archons not as gods, but as rebels who have exceeded their mandate. By articulating this, she changes her status from victim to plaintiff. This is a crucial distinction for anyone engaged in what is called spiritual warfare. As long as you feel like a victim of bad luck, fate, or demons, you are powerless. The moment you realize that your suffering is a violation of your divine rights, you regain agency. Sophia's prayer in the 7th sequence is surgical. She admits her error, the mistake of looking down, without wallowing in toxic shame. She accepts responsibility for her naivety, but refuses to accept eternal punishment for it. This balance is the key to breaking the cycle of karma. The entity known as the self-willed, Authades, perceived this shift in frequency immediately. We must understand these entities as highly sensitive to vibration. When Sophia was vibrating in fear, she was palatable, she was open. But as she began the 7th lament, her vibration shifted to confidence and singular focus. To the Archons, this new frequency was abrasive. It was like introducing a foreign virus into their closed operating system. The text describes that they became agitated and intensified their pressure. This is a pattern we see replicated in human psychology and even in the physics of resistance. When you try to break an addiction or leave a toxic environment, the resistance is strongest right before the breakthrough. The system fights to maintain homeostasis. The Archons did not want to lose their primary energy source. They swarmed her, trying to break her concentration, trying to pull her gaze back down to the mud. But the 7th lament is built on the power of ignoring the noise. Sophia had entered a state of deep coherence, where the external chaos could no longer dictate her internal state. Historically, we must remember that this text emerged in a time of immense spiritual turbulence, parallel to our own. The Roman Empire was a crushing machine of assimilation, much like the modern globalist structures that demand conformity. The Gnostics who wrote and read these texts were rebels of the mind. They understood that the true war was not against Caesar, but against the unseen forces that influenced human leaders to act with cruelty and greed. They saw the material world not as the ultimate reality, but as a dense, corrupted copy of a higher design. The story of Sophia is the story of the collective human soul. We are all Sophia. We have all been lured into this density by false promises of fulfillment in matter, status, and sensory pleasure. And like her, we find ourselves drained, wondering why the things we chased are now eating us alive. The 7th lament is the manual for the modern individual who is tired of the simulation. It teaches that the only way out is not through political revolution or physical escape, but through a vertical shift in consciousness. It is about tuning into a broadcast that has been jammed by centuries of static. Jesus emphasizes to the disciples that Sophia's capacity to execute this lament came from her faith, or pistis. But we must strip this word of its modern, weakened meaning. In the context of the mysteries, pistis is not blind belief in a doctrine. It is a form of knowledge. It is the intuitive certainty of something not yet visible. It is the ability to see the exit door before the lights turn on. Sophia used this active faith to anchor herself. Imagine a mountain climber hanging over a precipice. The 7th lament is the piton driven into the rock face. It stops the fall. It does not pull her up yet. That comes later, but it stops the descent. This stabilization is critical. You cannot ascend if you are still falling. You must first find a 0 point, a moment of stillness. Sophia found this stillness in the midst of the roaring lions. She created a sanctuary within her own mind, a Faraday cage that blocked the electromagnetic attacks of the Archons. Inside this space, she formulated the words that would begin to dismantle the architecture of her prison. The sophistication of this narrative lies in its understanding of energy economics. The Archons run a deficit economy. They need to steal energy to survive. The light runs a surplus economy. It generates infinite energy. By reconnecting with the light, Sophia tapped into an inexhaustible generator. The Archons, realizing they were now competing with an infinite source, began to panic. The balance of power shifted. This is the secret that the Gnostic texts guard so fiercely. The dark forces are finite, territorial, and starving. The human spirit, when connected to the source, is infinite, non-local, and self-sustaining. The 7th lament is the declaration of this truth. It is the moment the battery realizes it is actually a generator. As we proceed to analyze the specific verses and the cosmic reaction to them in the next parts of this investigation, remember that we are decoding a process that is happening inside you right now. The chaos you feel is the system trying to keep you looking down. The pull you feel to understand this mystery is the 7th lament beginning to form in your own throat. The moment Sophia verbalized the opening sequence of the seventh lament, the atmospheric pressure within the chaos shifted. This was not a subtle change. It was a seismic event in the energetic landscape of the lower eons. Jesus describes the reaction of the lion-faced power in detail, and when we strip away the mythological language, what we are left with is a description of a system under threat. The lion-faced entity, representing the apex predator of the egoic mind and the raw drive for material dominance, realized that its primary fuel source was being cut off. Up until this point, Sophia had been broadcasting fear, confusion, and desperation, frequencies that the Archons consume like nectar. But now, she was broadcasting authority. She stated, "O light, let not my enemies triumph over me." This is a boundary-setting protocol. In psychology, we know that an abuser loses power the moment the victim sets a firm, non-emotional boundary. Sophia was no longer asking why this was happening. She was decreeing that it would stop. She was establishing a new jurisdiction where the laws of the chaos no longer applied to her. This is the first step in dismantling the control matrix. The refusal to be a victim. The narrative continues with Sophia asserting her connection to the source. "For in thee have I trusted, O light. Save me and deliver me for thy mercy's sake." We need to analyze the word trust here. In the original Coptic and Greek context of Gnosticism, trust or pistis is not a passive hope that things will get better. It is an active, tensile link. Imagine a diver in the deep ocean pulling on their oxygen line to signal the surface. That pull is the trust. It is a mechanical action of connection. Sophia is activating the uplink. And when she asks for mercy, she is not asking for pity. She is asking for the re-establishment of cosmic order. Mercy, in this forensic context, is the correction of an error. It is the realignment of a system that has gone out of balance. Sophia is arguing that her presence in the chaos is a mathematical error in the universal equation, and the light, being the supreme mathematician, is obligated to correct it. She is appealing to the logic of the pleroma, not just the emotion. As this signal began to penetrate the dense fog of the chaos, the reaction of the Archons was immediate and violent. Jesus explains that the entities intensified their squeeze. This is a critical observation for anyone studying the mechanics of spiritual liberation. When you begin to wake up, the system does not just let you go. It tightens the leash. This is often called the extinction burst in behavioral psychology. When a behavior or a source of supply is threatened with extinction, it ramps up its intensity one last time before dying out. The Archons bombarded Sophia with increased thoughts of hopelessness, creating illusions that the light had abandoned her. They tried to jam the frequency of her prayer with static noise. This is exactly what happens in the human mind when one decides to break a pattern of addiction or depression. The internal voices of doubt become louder. This is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that the parasite is starving. The seventh lament is the endurance test to weather this specific storm. Sophia specifically requests, "Take my power from the hands of the lion-faced one." This reveals the transactional nature of her imprisonment. It was not just confinement, it was a heist. Her light power, her very essence, was being siphoned to sustain the lion-faced construct. This entity, which is half fire and half darkness, represents the dual trap of passion and ignorance. By demanding her power back, Sophia is initiating a foreclosure on the Archon's assets. She is not just leaving, she is taking her capital with her. If we apply this to our own lives, it means reclaiming the energy we have invested in toxic relationships, in political polarization, in consumerism, and in fear. Every time you engage with the matrix on its terms, you are investing your light power in the lion-faced bank. Sophia's lament is the withdrawal slip. She realizes that without her power, the lion-faced one is nothing but a hollow shell. She is the battery, and she is disconnecting herself. The lament continues, "Thy truth has guided me." In a realm built entirely on deception, truth is the only navigation data that matters. But what is this truth? It is the gnosis, the remembrance of her origin. The Archons rely on amnesia. They need the soul to forget where it came from, so that it identifies with the prison. Sophia began to remember the sensation of the pleroma, the smell of the aeons of light, the feeling of unity. These memory fragments acted as coordinates. She used the truth not as a philosophical concept, but as a homing beacon. In the simulation theory, this is akin to realizing you are in a game. Once you know it is a game, the monsters stop being terrifying and start being obstacles to be navigated. The truth guided her out of the emotional labyrinth the Archons had constructed. She stopped reacting to the illusions and started responding to the signal coming from home. Jesus notes that the lion-faced power was enraged. We must pause to consider the psychology of this entity. It is defined by authades, or self-will. It believes it is the center of the universe. When Sophia ignored it to look at the light, it caused a narcissistic injury to the entity. It roared and emitted fire, trying to regain her attention. This is a perfect metaphor for the ego. The ego demands attention, whether positive or negative. It hates indifference. Sophia's focus on the light was an act of supreme indifference to the dark. She effectively rendered the Archons invisible by refusing to acknowledge their authority. She says, "Let me not be ashamed, for I have cried unto thee." Shame is the weapon of the jailer. It keeps the prisoner head bowed. By connecting with the light, Sophia bypassed the circuit of shame. She realized that her value was intrinsic, determined by her source, not by her current location in the mud. The issue of time is also addressed in this section. Sophia pleads, "Hasten to hear me." In the chaos, time is distorted. It feels heavy, slow, and repetitive. This is the time of Chronos, the time that eats its children. Sophia is appealing for an intervention from outside of time, from the eternal now. She feels the urgency because she knows that prolonged exposure to the chaos begins to alter the structure of the light itself. We see this in trauma victims. If the trauma persists too long, the personality begins to fragment. Sophia is racing against the clock of her own disintegration. Her plea for haste is a recognition that the window of opportunity is open, and she must go through it before the Archons patch the breach in their security system. As Jesus recounts this to the disciples on the Mount of Olives, we see a shift in their understanding. They start to realize that this is not just a history lesson. It is a briefing on the physics of the soul. Mary Magdalene, who acts as the primary investigator among the group, begins to see the physiological correlations. She understands that the lion-faced power corresponds to the solar plexus, the center of raw emotion and desire, while the light corresponds to the crown, the center of higher intelligence. The battle of Sophia is the battle between the gut and the brain, between instinct and intuition. The seventh lament is the technique to raise the energy from the lower centers to the higher centers. It is an alchemical transmutation performed through the voice. The narrative describes that as Sophia held her ground, a protective field began to form around her. The fire emitted by the lion-faced one could no longer burn her directly. It could only scorch the periphery. She had created a buffer zone. This teaches us that we do not need to destroy the darkness immediately. We just need to create enough space to function. We need a tactical perimeter. The seventh lament provided this perimeter. It gave her a moment of breath. In that pause, she found the clarity to formulate the next phase of her escape. She realized that the Archons were not all powerful gods. They were automated systems running a loop. They could only react to her movements. If she stopped moving in fear, they stopped knowing how to track her. She became a ghost in the machine. Jesus concludes this part of the breakdown by emphasizing that the light did not descend instantly in its full power. It came in increments. This is a safety mechanism. If the full voltage of the pleroma were to hit a being conditioned by the darkness, it would shatter the vessel. The rescue operation is delicate. It requires calibration. Sophia had to prove she could hold the connection before more power was downloaded to her. The seventh lament was the proof of capacity. She showed she could hold the line, and because she held the line, the heavens began to move. The gears of the great machinery of the ineffable started to turn in her favor. The Archons heard the sound of approaching thunder from above, and for the first time in eons, they felt the chill of an approaching judgment. The hunter was about to become the hunted. The tactical situation in the chaos reached a critical tipping point immediately following Sophia's initial transmission of the seventh lament. Jesus, in his debriefing to the inner circle of disciples, describes a reaction from the Archons that can only be classified as a system-wide immune response. The entity known as the self-willed, or authades, realized that the energy leak which was Sophia had stopped flowing. In a desperate attempt to re-establish the connection, he authorized a massive surge of dark emanations. We must understand this not as spooky magic, but as a concentrated broadcast of low-frequency data designed to overwhelm the receiver. The Archons flooded Sophia's immediate environment with intense projections of fear, isolation, and imminent destruction. It was a psychological shock and awe campaign. The objective was to break her concentration, to snap the fragile uplink she had established with the light, and to force her back into a state of reactive panic. This is a standard suppression tactic used by control systems. When a subject shows signs of independence, increase the pressure until they fold. However, Sophia's defense strategy had evolved. She did not engage with these new threats directly. Instead, she deepened her claim on the moral high ground. She stated, "Let them be ashamed who seek to destroy my soul." In the forensic analysis of this interaction, shame operates as a mirror. By invoking shame upon her persecutors, Sophia was effectively holding up a mirror to the void. She was demanding that the entropy they were projecting be reflected back onto them. This is a sophisticated maneuver in energy warfare. She refused to absorb the toxicity. She deflected it. The text suggests that for the first time, the Archons felt the sting of their own nature. They operate in the dark, and when their actions were highlighted by Sophia's refusal to consent, they were exposed. Exposure is the one thing a shadow entity cannot withstand. They rely on the victim's complicity, on the victim believing they deserve the abuse. Sophia broke that contract. The narrative takes a fascinating turn when Sophia introduces the concept of joy as a defensive weapon. She declares, "Let them exult and be glad who love my salvation." This seems counterintuitive in a war zone. Why speak of joy when you are surrounded by monsters? Because joy is a frequency that exists above the bandwidth of the Archons. They cannot process it. It is encrypted data to them. By generating a feeling of exultation, Sophia became invisible to their radar. She shifted her vibrational state to a level where they could not touch her. She was literally vibrating out of their grip. This teaches us that in the face of absolute darkness, the most rebellious act is not anger, but joy. Anger keeps you in the same arena as the aggressor. Joy elevates you to the spectator seats, out of reach of the gladiator pit. Sophia was learning to be in the chaos, but not of it. At this juncture, Mary Magdalene, whose role in these texts is that of the master decoder, intervenes. She identifies a correlation between Sophia's experience and the ancient writings of the Psalms. She points out that King David, likely acting as a remote viewer or prophet receiving data from the future, described this exact scenario. This validates the Gnostic view that truth is non-local in time. The experience of breaking free from the matrix is universal. Whether it is David, Sophia, or a modern individual, the mechanics of the trap and the escape are identical. The Archons use the same playbook every time: isolation, fear, and energy harvesting. And the countermeasure is always the same: focus, trust, and the reclamation of sovereign power. Mary's insight confirms that we are dealing with an objective science of the soul, not just a random mythology. The battle in the mental plane intensified. The Archons, realizing that their intimidation tactics were failing, tried to convince Sophia that she had been swallowed. They projected thoughts into her mind, saying, "Aha, we have devoured her. This is gaslighting on a cosmic scale." They tried to make her believe she had already lost, even as she was winning. This is the ultimate weapon of the simulation: the illusion of defeat. If they can make you believe there is no point in fighting, they win without firing a shot. Sophia, however, had her eyes fixed on the light. She knew that as long as she could see the light, she was not swallowed. She used visual confirmation to override the auditory lies of the enemy. She trusted her vision more than the voices in her head. This is a crucial lesson in discernment. The dark forces often control the internal dialogue, but the light controls the vision. Then, the first tangible intervention occurred. Jesus explains that in response to her unwavering focus, he was authorized by the first mystery to send a specific power of light to assist her. But notice the precision of the operation. He did not extract her immediately. He elevated her to a slightly higher region within the chaos. This is the concept of the decompression stop. If a diver ascends too quickly, the bends will kill them. If a soul ascends too quickly from deep darkness, the shock can shatter the psyche. Sophia was moved to a zone where the air was thinner, where the grip of the lion-faced power was weaker, but she was still in the hostile territory. She was given a breathing room, a tactical advantage. This elevation proved to the Archons that they were no longer the highest authority in the room. A force greater than them had entered the simulation and moved a piece on the board. This partial elevation infuriated the self-willed entity. He saw it as a violation of his sovereignty. The text describes a scene of chaotic rage among the Archons. They realized that their prey was being lifted by an invisible crane. They tried to jump and grab her, to weigh her down with more heavy emanations, but she was just out of reach. This distance, though small, changed everything. It gave Sophia perspective. For the first time, she could look down at the lion-faced power and see it as something separate from herself. Before, she was immersed in it. Now, she was observing it. The observer effect kicked in. By observing the monster from a detached position, she collapsed its wave function of terror. It became just a distinct, ugly object, not an all-encompassing reality. The chapter closes this sequence with a promise of escalation. Jesus warns the disciples that the Archons do not give up easily. When they lose control of a subject, they regroup and call for reinforcements from deeper levels of the abyss. The war was not over. It had just moved to a new phase. Sophia had won the battle of the mind, but the battle for her total energy body was still to come. She had gained ground, but she was not yet home. The next phase would require not just defense, but offense. She would need to learn how to use the light not just as a shield, but as a sword. The seventh lament had taught her how to stand. The next steps would teach her how to fight. We are witnessing the weaponization of a soul. Sophia is evolving from a naive aspect of wisdom into a battle-hardened warrior of light. And as we shall see, the universe tends to arm those who are brave enough to stand on the front lines of consciousness. As the operation to extract Sophia continued, the narrative provided by Jesus shifts into a detailed description of the technology of light. We often think of light as a simple illumination, but in the Gnostic context, it is a carrier wave of information and structure. Jesus explains that the power he sent to Sophia did not just brighten the darkness. It formed a specific geometric construct around her head, which the text refers to as a crown of light. This is not merely a decorative object for royalty. In the esoteric anatomy, the crown represents the seventh energy center, the connection point to the universal grid. By establishing this crown, the light was effectively hardwiring Sophia back into the mainframe of the pleroma. She was being brought back online. The isolation, which was the primary weapon of the Archons, was permanently breached. She was now a node in a network that extended far beyond the limits of the chaos. The psychological impact of this coronation on the Archons was devastating. The text describes a scene of absolute confusion among the entities. When they looked at Sophia, they no longer saw a vulnerable, depleted victim. They saw a reflection of the unapproachable light. This blinded them. We must remember that these entities are creatures of the twilight. They thrive in ambiguity and shadow. Pure, structured light is agonizing to them. It reveals their deformities and their lack of substance. The lion-faced power, which had been roaring with such arrogance, suddenly found itself unable to look directly at its former prisoner. This is the moment the hierarchy collapsed. The Archons began to turn on each other. Without a clear victim to focus their aggression on, their predatory nature turned inward. They fell into chaos, fighting amongst themselves for the scraps of energy that remained. Sophia stood still, watching the system self-destruct. However, the entity known as Authades is cunning. Seeing that brute force and intimidation had failed, he switched to a more subtle tactic: negotiation. The text implies that offers were made to Sophia. The temptation was to give her dominion within the chaos, to make her a queen of the underworld. If only she would renounce her ascent. This is the classic Faustian bargain. It is the offer of power within the prison in exchange for the key to the exit. It is a test of ambition. Would Sophia be satisfied with ruling over the demons, or did she want true freedom? This is a test every awakening soul faces. The system will offer you success, money, and influence to keep you engaged in the game. It will try to buy you off. Sophia, fortified by the seventh lament, rejected the offer. She understood that being the CEO of hell is still a form of imprisonment. She wanted out. Her refusal was the final seal on her integrity. Jesus then describes how the light stabilized the ground beneath her feet. This is highly symbolic. The chaos is, by definition, unstable. It is a quicksand of shifting realities and emotions. There is no solid ground in the materialist view of the universe. Everything is relative. Everything is fleeting. By creating a firm foundation, the light gave Sophia a place to stand that was immutable. This corresponds to the concept of the cornerstone in masonry. She was building a temple of the spirit right in the middle of the wasteland. With a solid footing, she could push back. You cannot push a heavy object if your feet are sliding in mud. Now that she had traction, she could exert force. The balance of physics had shifted in her favor. James, the brother of Jesus, steps forward in the narrative to interpret this event. He links the crown of light to the protective favor described in the Psalms, reinforcing the idea that this technology has been known to the initiates for centuries. James highlights that the crown is not just protection, it is authority. It signifies that Sophia has graduated. She has learned the lesson that the chaos was meant to teach her. In Gnosticism, the material world is often seen as a school of hard knocks. You graduate not by dying, but by realizing the nature of the illusion. Sophia had passed the exam. The Archons, who acted as the cruel headmasters, had no more lessons to teach her. Their authority was null and void. James's interpretation is validated by Jesus, confirming that the disciples are beginning to think like masters. They are seeing the patterns. Sophia, now crowned and grounded, began to purify her own internal state. The light allowed her to see the residue of the chaos that was still clinging to her. We carry the trauma of our battles, even after the battle is won. Sophia realized that she had internalized some of the Archons' poisons. The doubt, the resentment, the fear. With the clarity of the crown, she began a process of energetic detoxification. She purged the emotions that were not hers. She realized that much of what she thought was her personality was actually programming installed by the Archons. This is a terrifying but liberating realization. We are not our trauma. We are not our anxiety. These are foreign programs running on our hardware. Sophia hit the delete button. She formatted her drive. The reaction of the lion-faced power to this purification was panic. It realized that as Sophia cleaned herself, she became less sticky. The hooks of the Archons could not find purchase on a smooth, polished surface. They slipped off. The text describes the entity losing its strength entirely. It is revealed that the power of the Archon is entirely dependent on the engagement of the victim. It is a symbiotic relationship where the parasite needs the host, but the host does not need the parasite. Sophia broke the symbiosis. The lion-faced power shriveled. It was revealed to be a paper tiger. A hologram that only looked dangerous because of the lighting effects. In the full glare of the crown, it was pathetic. Jesus concludes this section by emphasizing the permanence of this shift. Once the crown is received, it cannot be taken away by force, only surrendered by free will. The Archons could no longer steal Sophia's light. They could only hope she would give it up. This changes the entire dynamic of the war. It becomes a war of seduction and attrition rather than invasion. Sophia had achieved a level of energetic sovereignty that made her a fortress. The disciples, listening to this, understood that their goal was not to fight the Romans or the Pharisees, but to attain this crown, to build the fortress within. They realized that the true kingdom of heaven is a state of impregnable consciousness. But the silence that followed was not the end. It was the eye of the storm. Jesus warns that the Archons, though beaten back, were gathering for a final, desperate assault. They were calling upon the rulers of the 12 aeons, the architects of the zodiacal fate itself. They were going to throw the entire weight of the cosmic destiny machine against this one rebellious soul. They could not allow a precedent of escape to be set. If one prisoner escapes the Alcatraz of the soul, the illusion of inescapability is shattered for everyone. Sophia was about to face the full crushing weight of Hymarmene, the fate that governs the stars. She stood on her new ground, adjusted her crown, and prepared for the tsunami. The real test of her strength was about to begin. The conflict in the chaotic realms now escalates to a scale that encompasses the entire visible cosmos. Jesus reveals to the disciples that Sophia's stabilization and coronation triggered a unified response from the 12 Aeons. These are the forces that govern the zodiac and the planetary spheres, the architects of what the ancients called High Marmine, or fate. Until this moment, Sophia had been dealing with local jailers. Now, the warden and the entire administration were coming for her. They could not tolerate a breach in the containment field. The text describes a synchronized attack where all 12 powers projected their emanations simultaneously. This was a convergence of every restrictive astrological force. The aggression of Mars, the restriction of Saturn, the deception of the Moon. They combined their frequencies into a focused beam of oppression, aimed squarely at Sophia's new foundation. But Sophia was no longer the same entity that had fallen into the darkness. Her perception had fundamentally altered. Jesus states that she looked up and saw the light, but she also looked around and saw the light reflecting in the darkness. This is the attainment of non-dual vision. She realized that even the Archons, in their twisted state, were operating on stolen light. They were powered by the very thing they were trying to suppress. This insight is the ultimate strategic advantage. It means there is no absolute evil, only distorted good. Armed with this understanding, Sophia did not cower. She sang. She began to chant praises to the light. This was not a hymn of submission, it was a sonic shield. By vocalizing the frequency of the pleroma, she created a dome of resonance that the dissonant frequencies of the Archons could not penetrate. The sound waves of truth canceled out the sound waves of the lie. To support this unprecedented stand, Jesus authorized the deployment of two high-ranking entities, Michael and Gabriel. In the Gnostic decoding, these are not just winged angels from a Christmas card. They represent cosmic principles. Michael is the archetype of kinetic force, the warrior energy that pushes back chaos. Gabriel is the archetype of information and announcement, the messenger who brings the codes of the future. By flanked Sophia with force and information, the light provided her with the resources to withstand the siege. The text describes Michael and Gabriel carrying the light stream that sustained her. They acted as pillars, grounding the high voltage of the pleroma so Sophia wouldn't burn out. This triad, Sophia, Michael, Gabriel, formed a stable triangle of power in the midst of the storm. It is a lesson in the physics of spirituality. Stability requires structure. You cannot fight alone. You need the archetypes to back you up. With this support, Sophia formulated the 8th lament. The shift in tone here is palpable. The 7th lament was about survival and stabilization. The 8th lament is about justice and karmic return. Sophia begins to act as a judge. She decrees, "Let them be caught in the snares they have set for me." This is the law of the boomerang. She is not attacking them. She is simply holding up a mirror at a 45-degree angle, ensuring that every projectile they fire ricochets back into their own faces. She understands that the system of control is self-destructive. It relies on the victim accepting the poison. If the victim refuses the delivery, the poison returns to the sender. The Archons began to suffer from their own emanations. The fear they projected bounced back and terrified them. The restriction they tried to impose paralyzed them. It was a closed loop of retribution. The effect on the lion-faced power was catastrophic. Jesus describes the light surrounding Sophia becoming so intense that it blinded the entity. We must interpret this forensically. The sight of the Archons is based on detecting low vibrations. They see fear. When Sophia became a blazing sun of high-frequency joy and justice, she effectively blinded their sensors. It was like flashing a high beam into night vision goggles. The system overloaded. The Archons could not target what they could not see. They began to retreat, scrambling back into the deeper, darker recesses of the chaos where the light could not reach. This was a tactical withdrawal. They ceded the territory. Sophia had cleared the zone. Peter, listening to this account, is struck by the mechanics of the protection. He realizes that this is the same power that liberated the Israelites from Egypt, the same power that closes the mouths of lions in the den of Daniel. It is the suppression of the hostile environment through the elevation of the internal state. The disciples begin to see that Jesus is teaching them a universal physics, not a sectarian doctrine. The miracles are just the application of higher laws that override lower laws. Sophia was demonstrating that the law of grace overrides the law of karma and fate. She was hacking the simulation code to rewrite her destiny in real time. Jesus warns, however, that this victory was not the end of the war. The Archons had retreated, but they were not deleted. They were lurking in the shadows, analyzing the data, looking for a new exploit. The danger of the 8th Lament phase is complacency. It is easy to think the war is won when the enemy goes quiet, but the enemy was just regrouping. Sophia had to remain vigilant. She had to maintain the chant, keep the crown straight, and stay within the protective triangle of Michael and Gabriel. The ascent is a continuous, active process. There is no cruise control on the path to the pleroma. If she dropped her vibration for a second, the darkness would rush back in to fill the vacuum. As the chapter concludes, we see Sophia standing in a cleared circle of the chaos, glowing like a star in the abyss, flanked by the great archangels. She has transformed from a victim of energy vampirism into a beacon of radioactive holiness. She has proven that the human soul is indestructible if it remembers its origin. The stage is now set for the counteroffensive. Sophia is no longer satisfied with just surviving. She wants restitution. She wants to reclaim all the light particles that were stolen from her over the eons. She is preparing to raid the vaults of the Archons. The victim is about to become the Avenger, and the weapon she will use is the most powerful force in the universe: the unbending, sovereign will of a fully awakened consciousness. The tables have turned. The hunt is on. We are now entering the phase of the operation where the local tactical success of Sophia transforms into a strategic opening for the entire human race. Jesus, acting as the bridge between the high-frequency data of the pleroma and the low-bandwidth reality of Earth, explains that Sophia's stabilization did not just save her, it pierced the veil. Before the 7th Lament, the energetic ceiling above the chaos was impermeable. It was a closed-circuit system designed to recycle suffering without any output to the higher realms. When Sophia pushed her will through that ceiling and anchored it in the light, she effectively created a wormhole. She installed a fiber optic cable in a world of dial-up connections. This is the metaphysical mechanics behind what religions call intercession. It is not about a deity favoring one person. It is about a pioneer clearing a path through the jungle so that others can follow. Sophia became the pathfinder. Because she established a two-way connection, the prayers and intentions of humanity now had a direct line to travel upwards. The blockade of the Archons was breached. The text details that the Archons, specifically the rulers of the 12 Aeons, were not just angry. They were terrified by this breach. They understood the implications immediately. Their monopoly on the human soul relies on the illusion of total isolation. If the prisoners realize there is a tunnel to the outside, the riot is inevitable. The Archons tried to scramble the signal. This is the origin of the noise that permeates our modern existence. The constant distraction, the barrage of fear-inducing news, the social polarization, these are all forms of jamming. They are trying to create enough static interference so that we cannot find the frequency that Sophia opened. The Gnostic practitioner, therefore, must become an expert in signal processing. The silence of meditation is not relaxation. It is noise cancellation. It is the only way to tune into the uplink that Sophia left behind. Jesus proceeds to give a detailed autopsy of the lion-faced power, the entity that had been Sophia's primary tormentor. He reveals a binary structure to this being. It is composed of 1 part fire and 1 part darkness. This is a profound psychological profile of the egoic drive. The fire represents the active, chaotic passions, rage, lust, aggression, the burning desire to consume. The darkness represents the passive, depressive states, ignorance, lethargy, the refusal to see the truth. The lion-faced power oscillates between these two states, burning out or blacking out. It has no middle ground, no stability. Sophia, by connecting to the light, introduced a third element: pure, cool luminosity. This neutralized both the heat of the fire and the blindness of the darkness. She found the 0 point of consciousness. This is the state where one is alert but calm, engaged but detached. It is the state of the flow, where the friction of the Archons cannot grab hold. The disciples, observing this breakdown of the enemy's anatomy, ask the critical question: how can we, who are flesh and blood, replicate this? They are asking for the practical application of the theory. They feel the weight of their own materiality. Jesus answers by shifting the paradigm of their identity. He explains that the physical body is merely a spacesuit for the journey in the chaos, but the operator of the suit is made of the same light substance as Sophia. The weakness is in the suit, not in the operator. The seventh lament is the command code that overrides the limitations of the hardware. It allows the software, the soul, to run at full capacity. By understanding that the lion-faced power is just a binary program of fire and darkness, the disciples realize it can be deleted or overwritten by a superior code of light. The narrative describes the physical effect of this realization on the environment of the chaos. The regions where Sophia stood began to change. The oppressive gravity lessened. The stench of the matter, a metaphor for the toxicity of low vibrations, was purged by the fragrance of the light. This confirms that consciousness dictates environment, not the other way around. We tend to think we are products of our environment, but the Gnostic truth is that the environment is a projection of our collective state of mind. When Sophia changed her mind, the hell around her started to cool down. She was terraforming the abyss. She was proving that a single awakened consciousness can alter the parameters of the simulation for everyone in the vicinity. However, the self-willed entity, Authades, was not yet deleted. He retreated to the background, observing. This is the phase of the Cold War in the spiritual journey. The active shooting has stopped, but the surveillance continues. The enemy is looking for a slip-up. Jesus warns that this is the most dangerous time. The adrenaline of the battle fades, and complacency can set in. Sophia had to maintain her high alert status. She had to keep the channel open manually. This requires immense discipline. It is easy to pray when you are in pain. It is hard to maintain the connection when things get comfortable. The seventh lament teaches the necessity of vigilance. The wormhole stays open only as long as there is energy flowing through it. If the flow stops, the jungle grows back over the path in an instant. As we analyze the reaction of the matter to Sophia's presence, we see it acting almost like a living organism that recoils from the light. The text says the matter felt pain and dried up. This suggests that the material world, in its fallen state, is parasitical. It needs the moisture of our emotions to survive. When Sophia stopped emoting fear, the matter around her dried up like a dead plant. This is a stark reminder of the Gnostic view. We are not here to fix the prison. We are here to outgrow it. We are not here to make the simulation comfortable. We are here to wake up from it. Sophia did not decorate her cell. She dissolved the walls. The drying up of the matter is the desiccation of the illusions that once held her captive. She stripped the reality of its fake glamour and saw it for the wasteland it really was. This section concludes with Sophia standing as a pillar of light, a literal beacon in the dark. She has become a lighthouse. The purpose of a lighthouse is not to fight the storm, but to warn the ships. Sophia is now broadcasting a warning signal to all the sparks of light trapped in the matter. Do not come this way. Do not be seduced by the lion-faced power. Look up. She has transitioned from a victim of the plot to the narrator of the story. She is rewriting the script of the cosmos in real time. The disciples are watching this with awe, realizing that their master is not just teaching them theology. He is training them to be operators of the same cosmic technology. They are being deputized into the rescue mission. The bridge is open. The question is, who is brave enough to cross it? The focus of the investigation now turns inward, examining the regenerative capabilities of the human soul once it is reconnected to its source. Jesus, effectively conducting a masterclass in metaphysical biology, addresses the disciples' lingering doubts about their own potential. He issues the famous directive, "You are the light of the world." In the context of the Pistis Sophia, this is not a poetic sentiment or a motivational quote. It is a statement of fact regarding their atomic and energetic composition. He is telling them that they share the exact same signature frequency as the power that rescued Sophia. This dismantles the hierarchy of worthiness. There is no special class of beings who can be saved. There is only the physics of alignment. If you align with the light, you become the light. The logic is binary and absolute. Jesus describes the healing process that Sophia underwent. The attacks of the Archons had left wounds on her light body areas of dimness, distortion, and energy leakage. As the light flowed through the new connection she established, these wounds began to seal. This is the principle of auto-regeneration. The light contains the blueprint of the perfect self. When it contacts the damaged self, it overwrites the corruption with the original design. It is like restoring a computer from a backup file. Sophia did not need to do anything to heal. She just needed to stay exposed to the radiation of the pleroma. This challenges the modern obsession with analyzing trauma. The Gnostic approach is not to dig endlessly into the wound, but to flood the wound with a frequency so high that the trauma cannot survive in its presence. Healing is a side effect of presence. The narrative highlights a crucial psychological shift: the evaporation of the fear of death. As Sophia felt her light body knit itself back together, she realized she was indestructible. The Archons rely on the fear of annihilation to control their subjects. They whisper, "If you leave us, you will cease to exist." Sophia realized this was a lie. She existed before them, and she would exist after them. This realization is the ultimate weapon against the Matrix. A population that does not fear death is ungovernable by fear-based systems. Jesus is essentially handing his disciples the keys to invincibility. It is not that the body won't die, but that the operator knows the body is just a disposable vehicle. The self is eternal. This knowledge changes the way one plays the game of life. You take bigger risks. You speak the truth more boldly. You stop compromising with the jailers. The matter that had been weighing Sophia down is described as falling off her like scales. This imagery implies that the density was merely a surface accumulation, not a fundamental part of her nature. We accumulate layers of conditioning, social expectations, and false identities. These are the scales. The seventh lament is the shedding process. It is painful because we often identify with the scales. We think, "This is who I am." But as the light intensifies, the false self cracks and falls away. Sophia stood naked in the light, stripped of everything the chaos had put on her. This nudity is purity. It is the return to the factory settings of the soul. The disciples begin to understand that the spiritual path is not about acquiring more knowledge, but about shedding the ignorance that has accumulated over the core truth. Jesus then prepares the group for the next phase of the operation. He explains that while Sophia is healed, the scales of cosmic justice are still unbalanced. The Archons have stolen light that does not belong to them. They are in possession of stolen property. The universe demands equilibrium. Therefore, Sophia cannot just leave. She must act as the agent of restitution. This sets the stage for the eighth lament. The seventh was about defense and healing. The eighth will be about justice and foreclosure. Sophia is transitioning from the role of the survivor to the role of the judge. She must confront her abusers not to fight them, but to read them the verdict. The light does not seek revenge, but it demands return. What was taken must be given back. This is the law. The reaction of the Archons to Sophia's healing was one of dread. They saw her glowing. To them, this glow was radioactive. It burned their eyes. They realized that their food source had become toxic to them. This is a fascinating mechanism of protection. Become so full of light that you give the darkness indigestion. If you are tasty, to the Archons full of drama, fear, and reaction, they will keep coming back. If you are burning with sovereignty and joy, they will avoid you. Sophia had changed her flavor. She was no longer prey. She was a hazard. This forced the Archons to retreat further, leaving a wide perimeter around her. She had created a green zone in the middle of the war zone. Jesus emphasizes that this entire process, the fall, the lament, the rescue, the healing, was necessary. It was not a mistake. It was a training simulation. Sophia needed to know the darkness to fully understand the power of the light. She needed to lose her sovereignty to appreciate what it means to reclaim it. This reframes the human experience. We are not punished by being here. We are being tempered. We are in the forge. The Archons, unwittingly, are the blacksmiths hammering out the impurities in our steel. Without the resistance of the chaos, Sophia would have remained a naive aspect of the pleroma. Now, She is a veteran. She carries the wisdom of the descent. This makes her more powerful than she was before the fall. The broken bone, once healed, is stronger at the fracture point. As this section concludes, the disciples are in a state of high vibration. They feel the reality of what Jesus is saying. They stop looking at him as a savior who will do the work for them and start looking at him as a commanding officer who is showing them the map. They realize the mission is active. They are the sleeper cells of the light in a world occupied by the darkness. Their job is to activate the seventh lament in their own lives, to establish the link, to heal their wounds, and to prepare for the great work of balancing the scales. The atmosphere is electric with potential. The victim mentality is dead. The warrior spirit is awake. Sophia is ready for the next move, and so are they. We arrive at the conclusion of this forensic dossier on the seventh lament. Jesus gathers the threads of the narrative to present a unified theory of liberation. He makes it unequivocally clear that the seventh lament is not merely a historical prayer recited by a mythological figure, but a universal algorithm. It is a source code written into the fabric of reality. Whenever a consciousness, human, alien, or archontic, reaches the absolute limit of its endurance and executes the pivot of the will towards the source, the mechanics of the pleroma are engaged automatically. It is a law of physics, not a whim of the gods. The system of the light is programmed to respond to the specific frequency signature of the seventh lament, the frequency of total, uncompromising trust. Jesus is handing humanity the master key to the prison. He is saying, it doesn't matter how deep you are. If you run this code, the door opens. This brings us to the reinterpretation of baptism. In the Orthodox tradition, baptism is a ritual with water. In the Gnostic decoding presented here, the true baptism is what happened to Sophia in the seventh lament. She was immersed in the data stream of the light. The water is the living energy of the pleroma. Jesus states that whoever understands and applies the mystery of the seventh lament is effectively self-baptizing. They are initiating themselves. This is a dangerous idea for religious institutions that rely on being the gatekeepers of salvation. If the individual can access the light directly through the internal technology of the lament, the institution becomes obsolete. Sophia proves that the priest, the temple, and the altar are all internal constructs. She is her own high priestess. The rescue operation is an inside job. The fate of the entity Authades, the self-willed, serves as the final warning in this sequence. He represents the crystallized ego, the part of consciousness that believes it is separate, superior, and self-sustaining. His defeat demonstrates that the ego is an unstable structure. It requires constant energy input from the outside. Attention, validation, conflict, to maintain its integrity. When that input is cut off, it collapses. Sophia's victory was not destroying him with a weapon, but starving him of relevance. She rendered him obsolete. This is the ultimate strategy for dealing with the arrogant ones in our own lives and in the world stage. You do not fight them on their level. You outgrow their level. You make them irrelevant to your reality. The fall of Authades is the inevitable collapse of all systems built on the illusion of separation. Jesus instructs the disciples to guard this knowledge carefully. He uses the metaphor of not throwing pearls before swine. This is often interpreted as elitism, but in an intelligence context, it is operational security. This information that the human soul is sovereign and the Archons are parasites is a weapon. If it is given to those who are still in love with their chains, they will turn and attack the messenger. The swine are those who are fully identified with the material appetites of the lion-faced power. They will trample the truth because it threatens their comfort. The knowledge of the seventh lament is for the remnant, for those who, like Sophia, have reached the point of saturation and are screaming for a way out. It is a rescue line, not a topic for casual debate. The cliffhanger of this chapter is masterful. Sophia is saved from the immediate danger. She is healed, and she is standing on solid ground. But she has not yet ascended back to the 13th Aeon, her true home. She is in the middle place. She has established a base of operations. The war is not over. The nature of the war has changed. She is no longer fighting for survival. She is preparing for judgment. The eighth lament, which follows, is the tribunal. Now that she is lucid and strong, she must call the Archons to account. she must demand the return of her stolen light particles. This is the concept of apokatastasis, the restoration of all things to their original state. The universe will not be whole until every spark of light stolen by the chaos is returned. Sophia is the collection agent. For the viewer of Omniscient, the message of the seventh lament is a call to action. It forces us to ask, where are we in the sequence? Are we still in the denial of the first lament, the bargaining of the fourth? Or are we ready to execute the seventh? Are we ready to stop looking at the chaos and start looking at the light? The power that rescued Sophia is hovering right above your frequency, waiting for the signal lock. The lion-faced power of the modern world. The greed, the war, the fear-mongering is roaring louder than ever because it knows its time is short. It knows that the species is beginning to remember. We are waking up. The investigation into the Pistis Sophia is more than an academic exercise. It is a mirror. As we watch Sophia climb out of the abyss, we are watching the potential trajectory of our own consciousness. The seventh lament is the pivot point. It is the moment the victim dies and the sovereign is born. The silence of the void has been broken. The signal is established. The question remains, will you use the key? The next file we open will be the eighth lament, where the trial of the Archons begins. But for now, stand your ground, adjust your crown, and remember,